Good morning. I wanted to talk to everyone about the timeline shifts that we're going through and what it means as far as frequencies and our own lives. See, the thing is with timelines, we have collective timelines, which is the big shift we're getting ready to go through, and then we have the individual timelines, which is what we seem to be going through quite often now. And while they're similar, they're also different. So as far as individual timelines, a timeline is created when the soul decides to branch off to give a different experience. So these can be things like what school you went to, where you lived, who you married. These can be really big. But what it does is it gives your soul the chance to experience every single option. Because the reason we're here is to learn, is to grow. And if we can learn from 1,000 different timelines all at the same time versus staying straight and narrow in this life and only this life, it's much more efficient to split off and do timelines. Now, having said that, each of the timelines hold frequencies. Now, we're just going to be very simple with these frequencies. Let's say that there's frequency A through F. If you're holding frequency A and you start to move into frequency B, all the timelines in frequency A start to collapse. You no longer hold that frequency within you. So then what happens is we integrate those timelines. We integrate the lessons that the other soul parts learned. And this is how sometimes we can just feel anxiety and depression and go, I don't know what this is. This can be the really crazy dreams that we get where you're like, whoa, what was that? That wasn't my reality in this realm. It was like a parallel universe type reality. Absolutely. It's exactly what it is. And so we integrate that, we learn it, and we take it into our soul, and then we continue moving forward. So when we look at a collective timeline shift, what that means is that everyone has to hit a certain vibrational frequency or light quotient. And when looking at the big timeline split that we're getting ready to have, I asked my team, I said, what does this mean? There's fear wrapped around this, and I get a lot of questions of, what about my kids? What about my spouse? What about all my friends? Are they all going to go? And I had read somewhere where somebody had put that all we had to do was hold 51% of light. And when I sat with my team and discussed that, they said, well, 51% can sound daunting, but if you realize that that literally means you need 1% more light within your form than dark, it's not unattainable. It means that you've got 1 foot out of duality. It means that you've got 1 foot into seeing goodness over all the dark. And when we look at that, we realize that the majority of people have 1% more light than they do dark. So when we look at this big timeline shift, most of us are going to go through and experience this timeline shift. And it's funny because, the people who come to me and they ask me, I'm really worried, am I going to make it? Well, generally, if you're already at the point where you're looking at videos like this, or you're reading the blogs and you're understanding some of these concepts, no doubt in my mind, you're going to make it. It's not a problem. Now, what's interesting here is we see where some people are leaving the earth. And some are leaving so that they can experience other realities than what they can experience with the timeline split. Some are leaving because they're done. They've done exactly what they came here to do, and there's no need for them to be here anymore. So when we look at the people leaving, we have to be really careful and not to say, oh, well, maybe they're going to stick in a lower timeline, because that's not accurate. We don't know. We have no clue. And the truth is, because we can have multiples of us in different timelines, while there may be the us who's going ahead into the higher timeline, there can be parts of us in the lower timelines that are still wrapping things up. And as those lower timelines collapse, we have to reconcile and heal these pieces of ourselves so that they can then merge into the newer path. Now, here's what's really interesting is, we talk about how people will move away from us. Well, we're going to narrow it down very simplistically. Let's say somebody is holding frequency A, okay, and you may hold frequency AB. But most of the people you are with hold frequency B. Over time, you may move more and more and more towards frequency B, so that it may become the predominant within your form. At that point, frequency A no longer matches. So you could have a friend who holds frequency A, you're now predominantly B, and all of a sudden you find yourselves not really talking much anymore. It could be that, one person gets a job and it takes them to a different city. It could be that there was some differences and some events that happened in the relationship that caused the split. But a lot of times it's just this natural movement of life. And when you think about how many people that you may have been friends with throughout all the years and that you're no longer talking to, you can see how easily and naturally that happens. It doesn't mean that there's anything wrong. It doesn't mean that, the person holding frequency A is lower or higher. It doesn't mean that. What it means is that your experiences no longer match. And so we have to be really careful not to go into that judgment of higher and lower, because that frequency, it is a heavier frequency, instead of realizing we're all doing whatever it is we need to do for our own soul growth, our own soul process. And we have to give each other the space to do that. All right, so looking at frequencies and emotions. Now, all emotions hold frequencies. So let's look at the emotion of shame. Now, if you're in timeline A, let's say, shame may to you go into that victimhood cycle, to where you're kind of going, you're blaming everything around you, saying it's not fair, I don't understand this. Okay, we learn from that, we grow from that. But then as timeline A drops off, your perception and perspective of shame may change. And you move to the next level, which could be, okay, so where was my part in this? What is it that I can do to heal these perceptions? What can I do to forgive the person who laid a lot of shame on me? How do I do this? And then as you continue moving on, then you kind of get into, okay, I can forgive this person and I can open up and I can do this, and now I'm going to work with the inner child. It's not that shame goes away as we move through these timelines, as we grow. It's that we see it differently. Now, here again, we have to be careful, because a lot of times our human mind wants to say, well, freaking here again. I'm going through this same fear, this same painful experience. And we get ourselves into a loop, thinking that we're on a treadmill, running, and getting absolutely nowhere. Stop. Take a step back and look at how you viewed that emotion a year ago, 2 years ago. And look and see where the growth is. Because if you can find growth, if you can find where you have changed, then you can see where you've switched. And it's no longer the same frequency, same emotion, yes, same basic definition of shame, different frequency. So be very mindful of that, because we can knock ourselves down really easily by getting into our mind and thinking that we're going, nonstop. So now the fun part about these timelines, the fun part, I'm going to say, and the scary part, in my opinion, is that every time we switch timelines, so whether it's collectively or individually, our potentials change. They open up. It's almost as if doors open and we're able to walk into new expressions of ourselves. And truly, that's what it is. We're walking into who we can be with each of these shifts. We just have to allow it. But, I was sitting there and I was talking to my husband and I said, when I tap into the fact that every time we switch, every time we change and grow, the potential changes, I said, I find it terrifying. The thought of living up to a potential that is unlimited, can be really daunting. And I found myself kind of wanting to sit in place, going, I don't know if I can handle this. And so I was talking to my husband. I said, I'm really good at failing. I've done lots of things and not gone through with it. I've, had a bankruptcy. I had health issues. I lost a home. I've had struggles that really could be looked at as failures. And I said, I'm kind of good at that. I'm good at bouncing back. I'm good at picking myself up and starting over. I'm really good at that. But what I don't feel that I'm good at is living up to my absolute potential. And it seems like every time I turn around, that absolute potential changes. And so I'm sitting there and I'm telling my husband, I said, it's a failure to succeed, or it's a fear of success. And I'm like, I don't know what to do with this. Because my natural inclination then is to become the rabbit and be like, freeze, if you can't see me because I'm not moving, I don't exist. But it's not going to work. And it's very uncomfortable because we're expected to grow and to expand. And so he says to me, what if every day you realize that you were working at your highest potential, no matter what it is? And I just sat back and looked at him and I was like, okay. And he said, because that takes the pressure off. And he said, so if today you get all this stuff done, great. And tomorrow you don't. That's okay. You're still working to your highest potential. And if at the end of the day, you look back and you say to yourself, I could have done something a little bit different, or, oh, maybe I should have done that. Do it tomorrow. But that way you're not constantly kicking your own butt, because we're really good at that. Or psyching yourself out by looking at a potential future and paralyzing yourself in that fear. And so I looked at him and, every once in a while he comes up with these gems, right? And I just look at him and go, I don't know who's talking through you right now, but thank you. Because it really did help to shift and release that fear of the unknown, that fear and pressure of what is this new change going to bring. Now, for many of us, these timeline shifts don't look completely visible. We don't even realize that they've happened. People will slowly move out of our lives. And then you may look back and go, I'm no longer experiencing that emotion as strongly anymore. Something has changed. Now, some of us really, you see the huge things. And it could just be as simple as I was coming home from the gym with my daughter. And I saw in this, a whole new strip mall. And it was a small little shop area I had never seen before. And when you looked at it, you could tell it hadn't just been built. It'd probably been there for 20 years. And I looked at my daughter, and this is my oldest, so she's 22, and I said, have you ever seen that place before? She's like, no. And I realized, I'm like, timeline split. Because in the timeline I was before, that place didn't exist. It was never on my radar, whereas now it's on my radar. And it was literally on a route I travel so often. And so you just have to laugh at some of the insanity of it. I recently had a situation with my mom. She calls me and she says, Jen, did you call me? And I said, no. And she said, you're on my answer machine. I'm like, Mom, I didn't call you. And maybe I did. Maybe me in a different timeline did. And I have to laugh because the time of the answer machine, in my realm, my reality was working with a client. I knew I didn't call her. So you just have to laugh. You just have to look at it and go, I don't know what reality is anymore, because everything is changing. Now, having said that about the reality, when you look at that, be really careful about what you're bringing in. And, I kind of laugh because you can look at the news and you can see who is now on the shit list with the news agencies or the powers that be. And it's whoever is being demonized. It's whoever is all of a sudden in the news about being this bad, bad person. And then all of a sudden they're highlighting somebody else. And it's just designed to work you up. It's just designed for us to go, I can't believe that happened. What is wrong with people? See, I knew that person was, a bad person. Those emotions feed a morphic field. They feed an energetic field. Same way as the emotions of love, joy, forgiveness, harmony, those are morphic fields too. And it's very interesting because we get a choice in every moment. What do we want to feed? Which do we want to see grow? So, I just caution you, take a look, be able to observe. It's really getting back into that observer mode of saying, what's going on here? What is it that we're being told? Who are we supposed to hate now? Who are we supposed to rally against? What is it? And really understand that the truth, it's not as set as what people think it is, because as we switch timelines collectively and individually, that truth changes. It changes. So when we hardline something and where we go along with the status quo and what we're supposed to feel, we need to really go, what am I feeding? Does it feel good? Because if it doesn't feel good, let it go. Let it go. Trust your own instincts and go, am I taking something in that doesn't belong to me? If I had never found out this information through social media, through the news, would it have affected me? And if the answer to that is no, it's not yours. It's not yours. And that's when you just go, yep, not my reality, and push it out. And it doesn't mean that you can't have compassion. It doesn't mean that you can't help others. That's not what I'm saying here. What I'm saying here is we do what we can with what we have in front of us. And a lot of us have ways that we can help in front of us without getting paralyzed by the bigger picture. So just take a moment and really look at what's happening, what we're being told, because it's pushing us in a direction. And really and truthfully, it's a direction we don't want to go in. So it's best if we kind of say, nope, I'm not going into that, because if I watch this on the news, I'm only getting one side and I have no idea what the truth is. So I'm going to sit back and I'm going to watch the frequencies. I'm going to feel the energy of things without judgment. And in that, truth is allowed to come out, and changes within everything are allowed to be made. So hopefully this clears up some stuff and makes a little bit of sense to you. Just know there's no fear in this timeline shift. There's none at all. It's a great thing. And it changes reality and the potentials for everybody. And within that timeline, there can be lots of frequencies, all the way from A to Z. And the reality in that timeline that is A, if everyone works on themselves and starts going to frequency B, A, even in the new timeline, drops off. And the potentials then change. So it's absolutely fascinating. Nothing is fixed. Nothing. Not only is it not fixed, nothing is impossible. So keep that in mind and realize that it's a great mantra. Nothing is impossible. All right, until next time, beautiful people, have a great day. Bye-bye.